Hey, over here. Yeah, go over here. It's director Andrew Hutta, who made the empty space in the last ones. I'm supposed to be telling you about my new project, Fallout. There's just one little problem. As you can see, I'm in a little bit of a pickle. But don't worry, with your help, we can figure it all out. So come on, let's go. The reason he's chasing me is because he's obsessed with the subject of Fallout, Ali X. She's a popular streamer. She's having this very special Halloween episode, but he's gonna make it truly frightening. As the killer makes his way into the house, it's gonna be a fight to the death between Ali and her stalker, and there can only be one survivor. Fallout is going to be a found footage film because we want you to be right there with the terror, experiencing it with Ali. We're inspired by such films as Scream, District 9, and the entire giallo genre because we really want those colors to pop, especially the blood. Okay, I think we lost. Come on, let's go. Oh, that was close. So if you haven't figured it out by now, Fallout is going to be my first slasher film. But while we do want to give you a fun, cool slasher film, Fallout wants to talk about a little bit more about parasocial relationships and about internet culture and about how the person on the other side of the screen might not be who you think they are. But to make this movie, we're going to need your help. Because this is a more ambitious project, I've started this Indiegogo so we can make Fallout the best it can be. I'm assembling an amazing team to make this movie, including working with iShape Productions, who did the super cool Rorschach vs. V short film. Your donations will be going to the effects, paying the cast and the crew, and of course, all the blood. In addition to that, if you support the film, you can get a number of perks from your name in the credit, a poster, exclusive screenings, and much more. With your help, I know we can make Fallout a unique and special type of slasher, unlike one anyone has ever seen. And the best part of it is, we'll be able to stop that killer once and for all. Yeah, that'll be cool. So donate today, before it's too late. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Bomb Squad. We're continuing our Haunted Halloween. That's the question that I did not answer. But if you're seeing this, it's the 16th of October, if Andrew remembered to upload correctly. And that means that yesterday we launched our Kickstarter for our new, it's not a Kickstarter, it's an Indiegogo. I will continue to call it a Kickstarter because like Kleenex. But it's for our new film. It's a slasher film. What a fun time. It's called Followed. Go check out the link below, or also I probably put a video at the beginning of this. But go check it out. Go help. If you've ever been like, hey, these guys never shut up about movies I don't really like, I really want to help them make their own movie so they won't talk as much.
There you go.
Well, guess what? It's your lucky day. Yeah, so yeah, but really, like, we'd really appreciate it if you guys just check it out. It's a fun little Kickstarter video. If you are interested in helping us or even just seeing this short film, if you're new here, go check it out. Go donate. We'd really appreciate it. We really want to make this short film. But yes, also, you don't know this yet, or you should already. The whole world should know about this, but the last ones, which is over there, is also now on Screenbox. It joins such movies as The Empty Space, The Last Ones. The Empty Space is also on there. So go check out all those movies. They're super cool. There's a bunch of good movies on Screenbox. Okay? if you want to go find them, go check out End of the Line, one of my favorites. But yes, now back to our regularly scheduled program of dissecting movies.
As we were pointing, I realized I have no idea where the boxes are on the YouTube, so
Yeah,
it's
it's
probably
always
meaningless.
Yeah.
it's fun to point because I just arbitrarily put us in different boxes.
I did the empty space because there's a little spot behind me that's just
Ah,
that's what that was
Oh, and that's where he'll
for the
put the
folks at
link.
home.
Oh no, it's
that's
literal empty
Oh,
space.
it's
that
invincible.
that's where I
Petty
got
shit.
the idea for the movie. Was I broke into William's house 2 years in the future,
Yeah,
and I saw his wall that didn't have a poster, and I was like, "Hey, that make a cool movie.
that's the one.
That'd make a Screambox movie."
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're back on Haunted Halloween. Thank you guys for watching. And so today we're covering a favorite. It's called 1408 from 2007. Remember when 2007 was a year?
Wait, this is a
It's
2007
direct.
movie?
Yeah.
The year of
Oh,
every banger. I didn't even realize this
I
is
know.
also a 2007 banger.
I know. 2007. Good job.
Yeah.
It was directed by Michael Halfstrom. It was written by Matt Greenberg, Scott Alexander, and Larry Karaszewski. Is that the guy who did Oblivion? Let's find out
I
when I
don't
click
know.
on this. Also, I'm going to tell you who is in this movie. It's not the guy who did Oblivion. We need to stop guessing.
Yeah.
We're always
Someone to
wrong.
make a dossier for us. That we can
I
read.
know. It stars, and like, okay, when I say the stars, you're gonna be like, wow, I didn't know this movie had so many people. But keep in mind that a lot of these guys have one scene and don't ever come back. So it stars John Cusack, it stars Samuel Jackson, it stars Mary McCormick, it stars the great Tony Shalhoub knocking it out of the park,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
and of course it stars Isaiah Whitlock Jr., who, if you've ever heard someone say shit in a movie, you've heard him say it. But yes, so Josh, why don't you check us in to 1408?
Okay, so John Cusack plays Mike Inslin, he's a writer who goes to haunted places and is like, oh, this was bone chilling. He kind of hates it. And then one day he gets a mysterious postcard telling him, don't go to 1408. And he's like, well, I have to check it out. I mean, come on. But what's waiting for him is a little bit more than he expected.
Right. And this was also based on a Stephen King film. I
Mhm.
mean, film. It's based on a Stephen King novella. It was a short film that they adapted into a feature. Yeah. So, William, why did you check us in
You already said
On the
to
1408.
1408? Yeah.
I mean, I would say that this is, well, John Cusack is a great leading horror man because he is someone who's like not really a very scary guy. It's like he's playing this author who is very jaded and writes about horror but hates horror at the same time. It's like his personality kind of like really fits into the character. And the
Yeah.
hotel that he stays in is like it's a genuinely scary hotel room. And I feel like this movie has like a good amount of like psychological terror, but also just like very visceral jump scares. And it gets like just kind of like
Yeah.
very heady and abstract in a lot of ways. And it's a very mainstream movie. It's not like super out there, but it kind of goes as far out there as a mainstream movie can. And so it's just like a really weird,
Yeah.
good movie. It's like never boring, no fat, just like I don't know. It's just a great like
Yeah.
concealed
Yeah.
movie. I don't
I
know. You know what I mean?
I think like one of the things, and yeah, I did want to kind of speak about that, and maybe I'll talk about more at the beginning. But like one of the things I like about horror is that it's you can be you can kind of subvert. Like subversion is kind of a big part of the genre. Even the last ones, the Empty Space. You think of even Psycho, where they kill the lead character in the first hour, and those are always good. But what they don't there's another type of horror movie that's just as good, and it's kind of like this 1408 film, where this film is just a very solid ghost story. Like there's not really a lot of subversions, but it doesn't matter because it's so good at like telling that ghost story that you're like, okay, I'm involved. Like it doesn't always have to be a subversion. Some movies like this, where it like delivers on what it's promised,
Hmm.
but it's still super cool, and you're like along for the ride. I think it makes it really cool. And I do agree that as for like a studio, I mean, this stars Samuel Jackson and John Cusack in 2007, and it was made by MGM and the Weinstein Company, so it couldn't be more of a studio picture.
Yeah.
And it's also based on a Stephen King book. Like that's like the most horror
Yeah, very
thing that you could do.
straightforward.
Right.
Yeah.
But it does go into weird, like it goes a lot harder than like a lot of times when you go see a horror movie that's like from a studio, you're like, oh, I'm okay with this movie. It's not going to be that scary. It's just going to be kind of maybe, hopefully, a little fun.
Yeah.
But this one does manage to kind of take it into weird places and kind of really examine some weird stuff that I think kind of sets it apart from other movies.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah,
I would agree. Yeah, and
I
it's,
think like,
it's good.
oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's very good too. It kind of it really kind of like ramps up correctly. Like sometimes you're like, okay, when is this gonna get going? But in this movie,
Yeah,
the very first thing is like him visiting another haunted location, being like, I don't care about this, And
Yeah.
then
yeah,
very very quickly, as soon as he gets to the hotel, it kind of escalates because it's not like a lot of times it's like, oh, it's an evil, like the guy's trying to get him into the room because he's part of it. But like in this one,
Right.
Samuel Jackson's like, no, seriously, don't. You're gonna die. Like there's
Yeah.
literally
yeah.
no reason to go in this room. And he's like, I get it. And yeah, so
Yeah.
it's
So I think like one of the
Yeah.
good things about this movie is that there's about 40 minutes before we even get to the hotel where we're just kind of like talking a lot. Like
Yeah.
there's
Is it 40
you
minutes?
follow that guy. I don't know how long it is exactly.
Yeah.
But I think like you're following this guy, and you could tell that at one, kind of like the girls or the people from the innkeepers, where at one point they might have believed, but they've become so cynical through life and through whatever's going on. Like he lost his daughter, and so he doesn't even have like that first place that he goes to. They're the like couple knows who he is, and they're like,
Yeah,
"Hey,
they're so excited.
do you want us to give you a haunted tour?" And as someone who does haunted places a lot through my job, let me tell you, they love to give that haunted tour. Like
Oh.
they want to tell you every single thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so, but he's like, no, I just want to go to my room and check it out.
Long drive.
You know, like,
long drive.
It's just, yeah, it's just this kind of like he's not trying to be overly rude, but it just comes off that way because he's not playing the game anymore.
He's just done.
And so I think it makes a good protagonist for this house. Like, oh, you not only do you find someone like there's that classic saying where it's like you pick the perfect protagonist for your story, and that is this guy, because not only does he not believe in ghosts, but he's been actively searching for ghosts, and that's why he doesn't believe. So it's not like, oh, this guy's super into it, so of course he's gonna see something. But it's also not like, oh, this guy is just a normal guy, he doesn't really care. It's like, no, this guy's looking for it, he just can't seem to find it, and so he's like lost
Super
any
jaded.
kind of
Yeah.
optimism, about it. And I think that makes it for a very good and also like it's funny because I just saw Salem's Lot and I just saw Dolores Claiborne, more so because of Halloween than this movie. But it's funny like how smug Stephen King writes his writer characters.
Oh, for sure.
Despite the fact that he's also a writer.
It's always some facet of him.
Yeah.
But you know what I love about that is that it almost shows realistically what because this guy like makes money off his books. Like he's
Right.
like he's pretty successful.
Yeah.
But even then, it's like realistically, he's going to this like book signing, and this like clerk's like, yeah, and he's like, oh, I'm here, and he just like looks at the book. He's like, okay, it's like
Oh, checking
like there's
over-
like 4 people there,
Yeah.
like no one cares because
Right.
Yeah.
because unless you're like literally Stephen King in the 80s, like you're gonna get 5 people at your book signing,
Right.
And I it's also that thing where like there's a woman who comes up and she hands him an older book, and you could tell that it's also funny, like again there's little like all this guy writes about is scary stuff,
Mhm.
and his whole character is how much he hates it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It's like, okay, Stephen King, we got it.
Yeah.
Now get back into work. We need a Dr. Sleep
Yeah, write
3.
about your feelings for horror.
Yeah. But she like hands him his first book that was kind of based on, we don't know yet, but it's based on a tragic event that he had.
Yeah.
And oh no, it's based on a happy
I
event,
think it's
right?
about his past. Because, like, the lady says
Yeah,
that
it's
the dad was a bastard, the dad character, and then he goes,
yeah.
I
Mhm.
thought he was too. And it's like, okay,
Yeah, well, and see,
family trauma.
I know that it's about him, but I don't remember if it's about him before a certain event or after.
You already said his daughter died in like the first 5 minutes.
Before his daughter died or after his daughter died?
I mean, this isn't really,
Also,
that's not like a spoiler. Like, it's obvious. Like,
No,
yeah, I
no,
mean,
it's-
you know pretty quick.
Yeah.
They also, you talk about like good actors for one scene. There's one scene where he meets his editor Tony Shalhoub, and as Tony Shalhoub's like walking to the room with like the attorney, he's like, hey, by the way, this guy's a little morose, so keep the energy up. They're like, oh my god, he's such a sad sack. You like can't feed
He's
into
just
his
fucking
negative
psychic
energy.
vampire.
Tony Shalhoub is so good in that.
Oh my god, I know. It's such a flat.
He's like, because he's playing like, yeah, he's kind of playing the bad or like the lawyer who's been with him forever.
Yeah.
And so he's almost playing the role at the beginning where he's like, "What's up, man?" Because they can't get into the hotel. They get the letter. They hear they were trying to get into a hotel, but they literally they're like, "Oh, you can't get in," and it's like an automated service that hangs up on him. And so he gets Tony Shalhoub to try to fix it, and is his agent. But yeah, he answers like, "Hey, what's going on? They thought they could keep you out, not with two bestsellers."
Yeah, not my baby.
And I will tell you again, that conversation happens quite a lot. So, where you're like, are we all aware that you're talking down to everyone?
Yeah.
But then I even like it because again, this movie's so tight because then right after he's kind of like, they're never gonna be able to keep you out. He kind of lets the other guy that was in the room leave. When he answers the phone, he's like, "Hey man, are you sure you want to do this? Because it's in New York. That's where your daughter died." And John Cusack's kind of talks to, but it shows again that they've been together, maybe not friends, but they've been together so long that they know enough about each other that they know that the whole first half is gonna be the fake agent talk, and then B, he's still gonna be legit worried about whether he can do it or not.
Right.
So I think that scene by itself, it shows us so much about the characters and about the way he's kind of
their dynamic. Yeah. Yeah, it really made me. I was like, man, when is the last time I saw Tony Shalhoub in any kind of role? And it's been a while. Bring back Shalhoub.
I know.
I say.
And it's funny because we were talking
Get him
about how
out
there's
there.
just such little bit roles in this movie, and I watched this movie last night and I already forgot that Tony Shalhoub was in it until you brought it back up again.
Yeah.
It's one scene for 3 minutes. It's a great scene, but it really is just
yeah,
and it's done. Oh,
it's so funny because he whenever I see the opening credits, I'm like, oh yeah, Tony Shalhoub is in this, and then it takes me a second to remember who he was, but that doesn't make that. It's because and it's so funny because when you watch this movie, you don't realize. So they finally get into the apartment, or they're gonna go to the hotel, and they're like, oh yeah, you just we found an old ancient law that says they have to let you in. But we want you, so you're gonna have to talk to the manager. He might try to strong arm you, but you know how to do this. And so then he goes to the hotel and he goes and asks for his room, and they everyone's like, oh, let me go get the manager, and then 3 different people do it, but we're still not in the room, you know? And I think there's so much waiting to build, and there's so much kind of going up, and that's when Samuel Jackson comes in. He's a manager of the hotel. And it is kind of funny because even at the time when I was watching the trailers for this movie, it was clear that Samuel Jackson had a very limited role.
Mm-hmm.
He's always in the same uniform. There's you always see him kind of in the same room. So you're like, okay, he's not going to be in too much of this.
Yeah.
And I wondered at the time, before I saw this movie, I was like, why would you get Samuel Jackson to kind of play the Grady role, the nothing role, you know? But I will say, he does such a good job of his face is so expressive.
I know.
You forget that he's not when he's not playing the badass, he can really bring out a lot in a role. You know?
Yeah,
kind of an austere. Yeah, there's a funny because obviously the whole conversations and being yeah, just like let me in. And he's like, I can get you a penthouse. I can do whatever you want.
Right.
Just don't go in the room. And he's like, and John Cusack essentially assumes like, oh, this is just publicity. Like you're building it up. So when I write about it, you'll get like more guests. And Samuel Jackson says like, sir, my training is as a manager, not a coroner.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
like he's like, I don't want to clean up your body, like because every time someone goes in that room, they die within like hours.
Right. And it's like we
know?
operate at 90% capacity.
One thing I like about
Yeah.
One thing I really like about that scene is you can tell whether it's through repetition or through just being prepared, but you can tell that Samuel Jackson has done this a lot because as he's kind of trying to dissuade John Cusack from joining or going to the room, he like starts off like, hey man, you don't really want to do this. Like you can just kind of, we'll put you in another room, like in a better one. And you could just say you stayed there. Like who gives a shit?
Yeah.
And then John Cusack's like, no, my readers need authenticity.
Right.
He's like, oh, here's a bottle of alcohol for
It's
you.
really
You know, like take it. Go stay in this room. It's 1404. It might be haunted. You know, it looks exactly the same though.
Right.
Again, no one will care. And like as the thing goes on, he's like, then he's trying to like a lot. Some of it does seem for show, but more so for like show of like this is how serious I am. And I think that that's it. It makes it an even better like kind of scene because like Samuel Jackson is like John Cusack like accuses him of doing some kind of like performance, and he is, but the motive is wrong. John Cusack thinks it's for him. He's trying to sell him to go to the room.
Right.
He's actually trying to sell him to not go to the room and do anything but that. And I think that that's a cool scene.
I do love to like it's also because you know obviously like for like the book or the article like John Cusack's like research the room where it's like oh like 13 people have died in it, and then you kind of get like more like little details where Samuel Jackson's like no like 50 people have died in this room, but the other like 30 were from like heart attack, stroke, like where it wouldn't show up in like a newspaper. And then he's like, okay, if it's that bad, like why don't you just keep like you know close it off? And he's like, oh well it's like some random Japanese company owns this, like, and it's like they just want to pretend there's no issue because it's just some foreign. So it looks better if all rooms are available.
Right.
Like, and I think that that's even funnier because companies like a lot of the movie companies can't let they have to like edit their movie. Like The Mummy was famously edited because you can't show a movie in China or in Asia if it's like if you show supernatural stuff, like that's against the law. And so that makes it even funnier because it's like, oh yeah, it's this Asian company and they're like, they famously don't really want to acknowledge supernatural stuff. So of course they wouldn't like be like, close that room forever, you know?
Yeah, I think it was also cool about that.
And it is, by the way, oh, go ahead.
Like just go back to the conversation between Cusack and Samuel Jackson. Like I feel like in most movies, like you don't really get to see Samuel Jackson become like frustrated and like defeated. So it's like really interesting to see a performance where he like is losing this conversation, and it's like I don't know, you never see Samuel Jackson get his balls cut off in a way, and like this smarmy little John Cusack guy is just the one to do it. And I don't know, I thought that was like sort of a weird characteristic that you don't see.
And he's not like. It's not like he's like reacting explosively. It's like the customer service, like, all right, you know, like it's a good role. Yeah.
And on the other hand, when John Cusack's side is pretty good too. Like the way they play it is really well because like you can tell that neither of them like dislikes the other one, but they like even at one point. Well, we'll talk about that in a second. But like you can tell that they kind of share this like. Not camaraderie, but they get along pretty well. Like they're not like screaming at each other. I do like, and then what eventually kind of ends it is that Samuel Jackson like was like, "Oh, I've read all your stuff. You know, it's pretty. It's like he's like, oh, you're a bad writer, or you're a writer who's lost faith and doesn't want to do anything." I will say that during that part, I was like, okay, I don't think insulting him is going to be case.
He's like, your readers want it.
And then he's like, and then he goes, oh, but I liked your first book. He's like looking at it. He's like, what's it called? And then that's when he's like, okay, give me the room.
I know. It's like flipping this like long lost book people already have known about it.
And like,
From the movie's time frame, it seems like he called and then he just went to go get the
Yeah,
room.
like the next day.
It seems like a very short amount of time
Well,
for
because
Samuel Jackson to have read multiple
Right.
books.
the fact that the lawyer got involved makes me think it's been like a couple weeks at least, you
Yeah.
know, because
Yeah.
usually the lawyer stuff takes that long. But this is where, because this whole movie like has like good cinematography, but when Samuel Jackson's like finally like defeated, like fine, let's just go. The shot of like it's the POV of the key as he's like reaching his hand into the darkness to like get the key out. And I was
Oh,
like,
yeah. That
yay!
was
Like it
cool.
has a lot of like cool little like I don't know, like I guess you call it gothic horror
Sure,
type
yeah.
like moments
Like
like
disorienting
that. You know,
points
it's
of
just like,
view,
oh,
long
I
hallways.
love it.
Totally.
Yeah, just where it's like, ooh, what a mysterious key
Yeah.
as he like reaches in to grab it.
Yeah.
But it's very
And-
lovingly crafted,
Totally.
you know.
Lovingly crafted.
Also, I will say it's 30 minutes into the film before we get to 1408.
Right.
So it's quite a long time.
I have
before
a
we get
note
there.
on that too. Like, so he gets to the room,
Oh, go ahead.
and whenever everything, well, so there's an alarm clock that starts when he gets into the room, and that's when you know all the scary stuff is about to happen. And it puts an hour on the clock, and he's like, and Samuel Jackson mentions that no one has ever lasted more than an hour in that room. And whenever the alarm clock goes on, it's like exactly 1 hour until the movie is going to get to the credits. So it is like an hour. Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's going to be four more
That's
minutes are going to
funny.
be left on the movie once that 60 minutes started. So I assume that's just credits. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. That is
No, yeah, that is, yeah, because it is the 1 hour,
Yeah.
right? You know,
And I really like the way, so he gets in the room, like he goes to the elevator and Samuel Jackson's like, oh yeah, this is where I don't get off. And so, and like, I do like that, again, going back to that scene and just how good it is. Like they do kind of go through that, oh, we're going to do the checklist of like, how does this work? Just so that like the film Twitter can complain. Cause like they say like, oh, so it hasn't been cleaned
Oh, yeah,
in
we
40
get the
years
rules.
or
We get the
whatever. And they're
rules.
like, no, we clean it, we clean
Yeah.
it once a month. But one time someone got locked in there and they got trapped. And so like it adds like another ghost story just to kind of get things going, but also it's like so you don't have to be like, well, how's the room
Right,
clean?
right.
Yeah, there's a lot of like stuff like that. But what I do like, it kind of is condensed down. And this is funny because like, you know, I saw this movie once in theaters when it
Yeah.
came out. So like, what, 15 years ago? And you know, I don't remember Tony Shalhoub. I don't remember like half the stuff that happens. But just as he's like going up with him in the elevator, he's like, "So what is it, like ghouls, ghosts?" And then Samuel Jackson's just like, "It's an evil fucking
Yeah,
room." Like
yeah.
that's all he has to say.
No.
He's
Yeah.
like, "I can't put it any more plainly than
Right,
that." You
right.
know, it's
Yeah.
literally just an evil room.
Such a good explanation.
And that stayed
Yeah.
with me. That line, you know.
And I like so once he gets into the room, I really like that a lot of it, like the first things that happens is he's kind of reading the file that Samuel Jackson gave to him as he's walking through the hallway, and then like he's like so into it that he realizes that he's like done a full circle, and it's like, oh well, you could have just gotten lost in the material, but it's also like it's kind of weird that he just kept walking and he never got to his room.
Oh, yeah.
And then
that
once he
was
gets
weird. I
into the
forgot about
room,
that part. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But and then once he gets into the room, like it's a little hot. The alarm clock goes off randomly and it's really loud. But it's all stuff that can be explained at the beginning. It's like a
Yeah.
shitty room.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
he
electronics don't work
he
well.
thinks the guy's like tricking him because it'll be like an alarm and then like this and then wait, this is also a good moment I didn't remember from the first time where because he's trying to like catch Samuel Jackson like
Fucking with him.
moving stuff or whatever, so he runs into the bathroom and he sees the toilet papers kind of like folded in that way it is at hotels, and he goes, finally something to write about, a ghost that offers
I know.
turn-down service, and then he laughs at his own joke.
Yeah, on his note
it's like,
recorder
what,
that no one's
what
ever
an
gonna
asshole.
hear. Besides him.
I know,
I know.
and he's just like, I just love how much he thinks he's like clever,
Right,
you
yeah.
know, where he's like, I
It
got
is,
him.
yeah. And I think like even that. So the first big scare or the first big movement is because then he like gets. He like looks at his bed and the mints are back, like the mints that they
Mhm.
put on the bed. And he's like, well, how can they be back? No one was in here. And then he like goes, looks out the window, and he looks back, and the mints are back again. And he's like,
Yeah, he's like, the person's in the living
And
room.
so
He bursts in the living room and no one's there.
yeah. And then so he's like chasing
Yeah.
someone down. but it's like it's such a funny like okay, but that is a weird thing to happen, but it's not like big enough for you. Like I know like you watch some movies and you're like, well, I'm leaving this house because it's haunted as
Right.
shit. But like this one, so far at the beginning, you're like, no, that's not. I mean, that's weird as hell. But is it a haunting or is it a ghost? And I think that's cool that they
Right,
play
so the
with
kind
it
of
for
thing
a
that you
while.
might like imagine as a
Yeah,
kid, like
and
we were in the hotel room, mom, and like my toy was like on the table, and then it was on the floor, and so there's a ghost there.
Yeah,
It's like that kind of shit. It's perfect.
yeah,
well, and obviously, like we as the audience, like know, obviously there's some haunting going on because that's the movie, right? But what I do like is he's kind of like drinking from like the super nice like alcohol that Samuel Jackson gave
Right.
him. So even when stuff starts to get like really weird, he's like, oh wait, like I've just been drinking this whole time, and he might have even put something in it to. So it's like it
Right.
kind of like gives him a reason to be like, this is still fake, which I kind of appreciate,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, and they do some cool stuff. Like then eventually someone comes to check on the heater or the air conditioner because it's broken. But like, and in the movie, I was when it started, like the guy who knocks on the door, I was like, oh, well, I guess he's gonna walk in. Like that's cheating. But then like he
Yeah.
stays at the door frame and he's like, this is
I
as
know,
far
it's
as I
pretty
go.
eerie how he did that.
Like I'm
Like,
not going
the
anymore.
guy, the character actor is like such a funny presence, but like he is creepy, like having to stay at the
Yeah.
doorway, and like it's like almost played for laughs,
Yeah.
but it's like not that funny. It's like actually pretty
yeah.
off-putting.
He's like, I'm not going.
Yeah.
Any jackass can fix
Yeah.
that thing. Yeah, and
I know,
he
he's
like
so funny.
he sells him how to fix it, and then he turns to thank him. He's already like walking
Right,
away
right.
towards the elevator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like once they're in the room, like they don't show anything
Yeah.
outside
And, like-
the room. It's like everything that's shot is now shot. I guess
Right.
there is some like exterior stuff where he's climbing on a wall that we'll get to, but for the most part, it stays literally in the hotel room.
Yeah, and I think that kind of really helps to make you claustrophobic, but also the fact that nobody ever wants to like
Right,
go
right.
in there. Like it adds to the mystery of the room. I think
You can't
that's
leave,
super
yeah.
cool. And so and so then he starts like then after that is when it really starts kicking off because that's when he sees the first ghost, the guy who jumps out of the window, which again is pretty cool because he like walks to the window and jumps out, and then he walks again.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
No. First he's just like, oh, that's weird, and he opens the window for air because it's still hot. Slams on his hand. He's
Oh, and then he sees the
injured.
dude on the other side.
Yeah, he's
Yes.
injured, and he's like, okay, no, I'm bleeding. I literally have to go to the
Right, right.
hospital. And then that's when he realizes he can't get out. He tries to call.
Right.
It's
right.
like fake. And then he sees the guy across, and that's when it's,
Mhm.
yeah. Because that's a cool scene, because, like, it's like he first, like, sees the guy who's trying to get his attention. And then the guy's like standing there, and he's like, "Oh wait, is it just my reflection?" But the guy's wearing different clothes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it is still him, but wearing
Yeah.
different clothes. And I was
Yeah,
like,
they're
"Oh,
mirroring
that's
the
like a
action.
cool
Yeah.
little
And
like." Yeah.
One thing I think is very cool is that once like after like they tell us a little bit about some of the ghosts, but then after they actually start in the house, like you either paid attention to who those ghosts were or you didn't. But they don't like ever explain like he's never like, hey, there's Grady, you know,
Yeah.
like there's that guy. you know?
Yeah.
It's not like a recent movie that I saw that just includes a clip of that scene in the middle of the shot in a fucking picture in picture so that we remember.
Is
It
it
like
the,
lets
is that
the
you talking
audience-
about the substance?
Oh.
So curious. Yeah.
But I think it's like it helps because we don't want to learn like it doesn't matter anymore. They're dead. They're like
Yeah.
they're ghosts. But
Yeah.
it adds like a little bit more if you do remember like, oh, that guy did jump out the window, you know? Like it's like, oh shit, this
Yeah.
is happening.
Right. And what do you guys think about how the ghosts look? Like,
Yeah,
they
and
look like they're like an old timey film as opposed to like a traditional ghost.
I-
Like,
I don't know, because he had the TV on, and then they're kind of like from the TV
Yeah,
almost,
yeah.
you know, because it's an old timey TV. So I thought it worked because then he, I think he like literally like tries to get some attention by throwing his lamp out onto the street, and then you see the lamp just like
disappear. Yeah.
fades
Disappear.
into, and then so everyone else kind of does that same thing, and I'm like, I do like that it almost like follows that like aesthetic,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I like that you can't leave the room even if you're a ghost. Like you can't even do
Right,
ghost shit
right.
outside.
And it's like also he's only ever seen the ghost in like photos, so it's like I wonder if like the room is like taking his like mental frame of reference to like show him like what the ghost like he might imagine them as like an old timey film, so it's kind of like messing with like what
Yeah.
his frame of reference might be.
'Cause- And I think it works because like you guys are saying, like he's watching TV, he's seen old pictures of these ghosts. He is
Right.
drunk as shit. So like those first ghosts, because eventually he sees more ghosts
Yeah,
that
that's
don't
true.
look like that. But those first ghosts are still like kind of like I think they're still fitting in that realm of the house is trying to play with them onto how much this is real and how much it's not, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's kind of a theme of like, and it is actually funny because it almost kind of matches like Oculus, where first it's just doing like weird little like scary things, but then it's almost like it's like learning what scares him and like pushing into like more like specific psychological like
Right.
issue, like horror that would be like specifically awful to him, and I was like, it's kind of interesting how that like it like slowly is like ramping it up, like it's learning about him the longer he stays in the
it's like
room,
he's feeding
It's
into it.
interesting,
It's
yeah.
kind of like learning his behaviors and what he's thinking. You can like read his mind in a way.
Let me ask you guys a question. Do you think, and of course it's Stephen King, but do you think that this house has, I think it has a lot of the characteristics of the Outlook Hotel from The Shining. I think it has a little bit of the shine, but do you think he's kind of going for that same
Yeah, I
feel?
think so. I mean, because it's like he's definitely an alcoholic.
Kind of, it's like a
eating his demons.
Like a ghost trap.
Ghost trap, yeah.
Well, I just think like The Shining, they do like there's that scene where he's like, just like some people are good and some people are evil, some buildings are bad and some buildings are good, So I think like King really likes the idea of almost a foundation of evil being a literal foundation in this like weird spot, and I think that it kind of works to me in the same way that like Alien and Blade Runner are kind of connected, where they're not really, but like you can tell they kind of take place in the same universe and they're borrowing stuff from each other just randomly. Like not for like a Deadpool Wolverine, like here's a cameo, but more so like it's just kind of cool to play in this world again.
Yeah. No, and it's almost like because the Outlook. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Outlook only is haunted if you're like alone in it during the off season, right? Because it's a normal hotel. And I almost like the idea. It's like, well, what if just one room was super haunted 100% of the time? I don't know. That's like a cool idea.
I kind of get. We're not going to talk about The Shining the whole time, but I kind of get the sense that The Shining is just not strong enough when the hotel is at full capacity because there's so many people there. But the less people are there, the more it can like spread its evil. That's why like it attacks that entire New Year's party, but it can attack when the place is at full capacity during the summer or winter.
And also The Shining, like it's like the 1408 room can like actually harm Cusack. Like it like slams the window down his fingers. Whereas The Shining just makes harm and stuff. So it's like there's kind of a little bit of a difference there, but I think other than that, you can almost say that this is like the same universe as The Shining. Like I didn't even think about that, but it's like the same guy who put a spell on the Overlook did the same thing to 1408.
Does it not to get off into it? Doesn't Stephen King have like a whole shared universe, like the Dark Tower or something? I've never read it, but isn't that his whole thing? Like it's all connected.
He does, but in the same way that all writers kind of connect their work.
Oh, sure.
One way or another, where they'll be like, "Hey, did you hear about what's going on in Derry?" And they're like, "Yeah, I don't believe it." And then it just kind of
or like in every Bret Easton Elton, it's like, "Hey, here's Patrick Bateman waving in the background. Bye."
Is he eating a hot dog?
You're like, I can't believe my brother is gonna come down for college. It's so cool. I will say one thing about this movie. The hotel is called the Dolphin. We didn't want to workshop that title.
Not symbolic at all.
It's not anything,
I know. And it's it's not a hotel name. Like no hotel would be called the Dolphin.
It's just innocuous. You know what I did actually forget though? This is the most obvious thing in the movie, but I forget because it's true in real life too. It's actually the 13th floor, but they don't have a 13th floor in hotels. Right. And I was like, oh yeah, because they literally point that out right before he goes into the room, and I'm like, oh, I'm dumb. It's the 13th. It's the haunted number.
There's 1408. That's what goes to attraction at the beginning. He's like 1408. That adds up to 13. How clever. And that's when he's like, "I've got to get to this hotel." And so yeah, it's like 13 on 13.
Yeah,
It's kind of
gotta
cool.
get
Which
that.
adds up to 26, which adds up to
Right.
8.
That is
Last number in 1408. I'm just fucking. I'm just kidding around. I'm just kidding around.
damn.
Oh man, you're the
Yeah, I'm the numerology
numerology
guy.
guy from the
Jim Carrey.
curse.
And I think like so the number 23. We'll just like and things keep getting worse and worse. Like there's I think my favorite part, and we're just gonna kind of skip around, is that eventually he like
Hmm.
makes it out of the room. He like gets out. And he's like, okay, this has inspired me to write a book. I'm gonna write an amazing book about this. And he's like going to write a letter, or he's sending it to his publicist to read, like so that they can publicize it. And then he's at the post office, and then he gets the letter again, and he's like, what the hell? I thought this was part of the dream or whatever. And then like they start wrecking
Yeah,
All
the
the
post
mail
office.
workers, yeah.
Yeah. Which he should have known that there was something wrong because there was a lot of workers in that mail office. And
yeah.
that's
There's
not
usually
something
Yeah.
that's
one to
very
two.
usual.
You're not gonna
Think
find
about-
Yeah,
6
that's
people at the USPS.
Yeah. But then so they like break it down and he realizes that he's still in the room. He never left. It was just that room playing tricks with him. And I think like that's one of the things because like it's famously an audition and it's in a couple of other movies. But like the fake out, that's not like mainstream movies
Yeah.
don't really do that. So I think that that's super cool. I always love
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
fake out.
The very I don't know, and it is like kind of I don't know, like it does really. I think that's kind of where people like just get pissed at this movie and why like they're like, oh, and then it fakes you out.
It
for,
is
like,
kind of a
20
long
minutes.
scene.
He's
Yeah,
in this like
yeah.
It's a good amount of time.
because it's literally just it's not even like a quick thing. It's literally like he wakes up in the water because he's like a surfer in the
Oh, I
water,
know,
which
that's
we didn't
so
even
funny.
talk about.
Oh yes, and at the
Yeah.
beginning, yeah, he gets overrun by a wave and he has to like
Yeah.
spit out the
yeah.
water to wake up.
Yeah, and it's literally he gets saved. He's in a hospital in LA. His ex-wife comes to see him. They have dinner. He researches the same deaths he researched for 1408, but they're all like they happen
Yeah,
somewhere
yeah.
else.
Yeah.
And then he writes the book. It goes well. He goes to the post office, and finally, they're like, no,
But
you're the
Bye
real
or
idiot.
hello.
I think to do the fake out, you really have to like commit. Like
Yeah.
you cannot like
Yeah.
only do it half-assed or it's
It's-
not gonna work. Like you need the audience to be like, okay, it's over. Like
Yeah.
however you get them to do that. But it's gonna take a little bit of time. That's why I like it so much
Mhm.
because the commitment to
The
it
commitment to the bit. Yeah.
is a lot. You know, like it's
Yeah, it's so much, and we didn't even talk about this. So this is probably the cheesiest like joke of the movie. But every time the hour
Oh yeah.
resets, the alarm clock goes off, and it plays.
Yeah,
We've only
Perfect
just
Earth.
begun,
Yeah.
and you're like, come on.
No, I like
It really
it's
is.
so on the
And I really-
nose.
Again, another thing I like about this movie that not too many horror films do is the idea that like because so many horror movies are predicated on like, oh, if I just get to dawn,
Right.
like I'll
right.
survive, you know, like I just need to wait for the sunset. And this movie, like once like all that stuff happens, he wakes up in the room and then the clock
Mhm.
goes back to 60 minutes, saying like, oh, we're gonna do this whole thing
Or-
again,
right, and,
Right,
and
right.
you
until
realize
you
So
die.
slow.
Yeah.
everyone in the room just lived that hour how many times until they're finally like, all right, I guess
Yeah.
I'll kill myself to end it.
Yeah.
Because the one time it talks directly to him is he answers the phone and they're like, he's like, all right, like how do I get out of this? They're like, oh, we can't kill you. You have to. It's like this goes on forever, but our express checkout is
Yeah.
available, and
Yeah.
there's a noose, and it's essentially saying like, oh, we can mess with you. We can't actually kill you though. You have
Right.
to choose to kill yourself.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you still have free will. You're just gonna
Mhm.
like live this over and over forever until you
Yeah.
go. With
And
it,
see that
you know.
I think that makes it even creepier because there's like at the very beginning they say one of the guys cut his own throat and then was trying to like
Yeah.
sew himself back together. And it makes me think that like there's probably a moment of clarity right after you kill yourself where you realize that it was the ghost like playing tricks with you. And so he was probably trying to save himself
Right,
again and
right.
he didn't have the time.
Yeah.
But I think that makes it even more like so much more sinister
know.
that the house does that. Like,
Yeah,
it
it's like
wakes
so
you up
bleak.
at the
It's like
last
so.
second.
That's the
Yeah.
most trap you can be in.
Yeah.
And there is his like,
Yeah.
and this is actually like the turn. This is kind of one of those things again. Like I didn't remember. Like his daughter does come to see. He actually sees his daughter a lot.
Yeah, he has
she
like
dies
flashbacks
of
of her.
like I think
Yeah.
it's like cancer or something terrible.
Yeah.
And finally she like sees him in the room and she's like, oh, I can't stay, but I just wanted to like see you again. And then she like crumbles into dust, and that's when he gets angry enough to be like, all right, I'll kill myself, but I'm killing
Yeah.
this room like with me.
Yeah.
And he has the super potent alcohol that Sam Jackson gave him, and his lighter, because he's a heavy smoker.
Right.
And
No,
with
he
those-
used to be a heavy smoker, but now he only has one cigarette left. In case like anything
Yeah,
happens, he'll smoke
Right.
one
He's
last
like, this is in
one.
case the apocalypse
Oh.
ends.
fair. And then
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he has the but I do like it's two things he brought with him, and it's like Sam Jackson essentially gave him the key to defeating the room, even unknowingly, and then so he has that in his lighter, and he
Yeah.
basically Molotovs it, and then finally like
And he's supposed to be
does
like an
his last
alcoholic, so
cigarette.
it's like
Yeah.
him using the
But
alcohol
that's
I think,
to
like-
keep the room is like kind of like him giving up on like his like addiction as well as his like
Yeah.
loss of his daughter and everything like that too.
yeah.
And of course, like him, like again, like he even says he's like, oh, it's half safety blanket, half superstition. So him again throwing or smoking that cigarette finally is another symbol. Like not only is he throwing away his vices in a way, but he's also throwing away his security blanket or
Yeah.
that kind of part of the past that he can't forgive himself
Totally.
for. He's kind of like letting it go. And I think like again, like you know, like we said, this is a
Mhm.
very simple ghost story, but it still has that like his
Yeah, it's
character
solid.
change is still pretty good. It's still like he loses his cynicism in
Right.
like in
Seeing
this
true,
face
seeing
of
actual
death,
horror,
you know?
something that he's been like
And
running away from, yet also chasing his whole
yeah.
adult life is like finally what turns him
Yeah.
around.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, and also that scene, like, so his daughter comes and she's like, "I miss you, Daddy," and when she falls apart into ashes and he's like trying to collect the ashes, it's just such
Yeah.
a sad
Yeah, it's
Very
like,
cool.
like it's so depressing.
pathetic. Yeah, like, well, that yeah, and then that's very because obviously it lights the room on fire. Finally, the fire department saves him, like, because he's right at the door. And
Yeah.
he's like, "Do
Well,
not
see-
go in the room."
One thing I thought was cool was that so he lights the room on fire, he's smoking a cigarette, and then like how the room is trying to like save itself. So it turns
Mhm.
on the sprinklers, and he's like, not so fast, and he like grabs the last thing and throws it out the window. He grabs like a plate, throws it out the window, which brings oxygen in, which engulfs the room in flames. So it's like the room cannot turn itself off anymore. Which I also thought, like, because and I've seen this movie a couple of times, but every time he lights it on fire, I'm like, why don't they just turn on
Yeah.
the sprinklers? Isn't that going to stop it? So him doing that, again, it's like they figured out that most of us annoying film Twitter guys
Not
don't
Yeah.
ask
today.
this question.
Yeah.
So they beat us at our own game. Yeah.
But see, and that's what I like about like this over Oculus, where in Oculus she knows the rules, but it doesn't help. Just still everything goes wrong. But in this one, he figures it out and like
Yeah,
ekes out
totally.
a win. And you
Yeah.
you like to see them like eke it out. It's like, okay, so he overcomes like like his alcoholism,
Yeah.
death of his daughter, all that. Whereas in Oculus, it's like, no, you're
Right.
gonna
Right.
suffer
Sorry.
forever.
Yeah.
You'll never get over your
Yeah.
trauma.
And then one thing, guys,
Mm-hmm.
obviously we like this movie. Go check it out. But before we wrap up, I do want to say, apparently there is
Right,
3
right. I was
endings
reading
to
that on
this movie. Let me
Wikipedia.
pull them up.
Oh, really?
So the ending that I saw, and I think this is the only ending I've ever seen because I remember seeing it in theaters, is that at the very end, like, so the firefighters are able to save him, and then like him and his wife reconcile, and so then like he's like writing the book, and she's like, "Oh, you're writing fast." He's like, I
Yeah.
didn't have to, I already wrote this one. and then he's like, "Oh, we should throw this stuff you had in the room." He finds a tape recorder, he presses play,
Mhm.
and they both hear the daughter, kind of like signifying that it
Right,
was real,
right.
like this wasn't fake.
Yeah, like, and I actually like that because that proves his daughter's ghost really did
Yeah.
make it to the afterlife. Because like the reason they broke up. He's like, it's all fake. The afterlife's fake.
Right.
And he just like let her on. So
Yeah.
it's a nice ending. You know,
That's kind of like that
confirms his
Stanley
daughter's
Kubrick
doing
quote, where
well.
he's like, a ghost story is
Chilling
a
in
happy
heaven.
story because it shows that there's life after death. It's kind of similar.
Yeah, but that is
Yeah.
the ending.
Yeah, same. That's what I saw.
The only ending I've seen too.
So the other ending was he dies in the fire. Then at the funeral, they Samuel Jackson's there for some reason, and he gets
Yeah.
to stunt on his
told
grave. He's like, I told you, man.
But then he like gets in the car and he sees John Cusack like his burned body in the back of the car, which again is already breaking the rules
That's
of the,
not.
of the thing.
Yeah.
And then he sees John Cusack and his daughter like walking away as ghosts and they disappear. But like, I don't know. To me, like so much has gone on that I think that it doesn't. To me, that ending isn't as satisfying. I think. As,
Yeah.
No, I agree. Yeah,
It's
that's
just kinda
very like
drifty.
okay. What's the third ending? I didn't read about any of this.
The third ending is that again he dies, and then and then like so they go to the funeral. They kind of skip all that other stuff. Samuel Jackson again is there. He goes back to his office. They find this story for 1408 that I guess he wrote in the dream. It doesn't matter. I mean, he starts reading it, and then he hears that guy's voice, and then like you realize that he's now stuck in the room, which is again not a bad ending. Both of those other endings are kind of like generic horror movie ending. Where the one that we have, I mean, it's still a little bit rocky because it's like, wait, was that actually the daughter? I thought it was the room pretending to be the daughter.
No, I like that it's like the daughter like broke through the room just to like give him that like message, you know.
It makes sense because the daughter's dialogue in that scene is not like how the other ghosts talk to him. Like it's very direct, and it's also kind of helpful.
Trying to kill him.
Where everyone else is just telling him the weirdest, creepiest shit. Yeah, or trying to kill him.
Yeah.
Like, no, I think the best ending is the original one. I think I like that one with the daughter. It kind of, like, it's the same thing a little bit with End of Days, or like if you give them hope back and then you immediately kill them.
Right.
What was the point of giving them hope? You know?
Yeah, just for kind of the horror, like what a horror twist. Things are bad. Yeah. No.
But other than that, so if you are watching it, I would watch the theatrical cut. But yeah, I mean, this movie, super fun. I love it. I think it's also like, that's why, you know, Martin Scorsese, my peer in
a guy who knows who any of us
Martin
are.
Scorsese, he said that. Yeah, he said that thing about Marvel movies, and he said Marvel movies are kind of like carnival games or amusement park rides. And like, to me, I feel like movies like 1408 are like haunted house rides. And I don't mean that in a bad way with either one. I just mean like, you know, you go to a haunted house and you go through that haunted house, you're going through a haunted house. Like there's probably going to be ghosts. People are going to like jump out at you. They're going to kind of scare you. You know what you're getting in there for, you know? And I think with 1408, like you're going to see a ghost story. There's not going to, like this time, there's not a subversion. Yeah. It's just a very direct ghost story. And so you're just strapped in and you're along for the ride. And like, even though this movie doesn't subvert, it's still very good. It's very fun, and it's most importantly, it's very scary. So, like, I don't see that as an insult. I think that that's a kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it's cool when it's
no
like
frills,
straightforward like that.
Fucking scares.
Yeah,
I think John Cusack just really sells it. I think that he's like a major key to this movie. Like just his personality. Like he's not really a horror guy. He's like a comedy kind of guy, and it totally works in this movie, and it makes it like that much scarier. I feel. Yeah,
I think he's smug. He's just smug enough that you're like, okay, yeah. But yeah, good movie, good. And so next week, guys, let me make sure it's the last week of Halloween. It is there's 2 more weeks, so never mind, William. You're
2 more movies?
You're still on the clock, buddy. Get back to it. you got 2 more movies. But so we'll continue our thing again. Go to our Kickstarter. Oh, wait, I do have a question for you guys. And this is also for the audience. Put your answer in the comments. So at the very beginning, John Cusack is trying to get the room. And Samuel Jackson's like, no, we're going to put you in a penthouse. You'll love it. I had an idea. If I was that guy and I lived in New York and I found out about this room that if you rent it, they give you a penthouse, how many times do you think I could stay in that penthouse before Samuel Jackson has me murdered?
For real.
By making
Yeah.
you stay in the room.
Okay, today's the day.
Let's say like three,
Yeah.
three times.
Yeah, like because
I'll
I'm
do
like,
it.
no, man. I mean, you have to
I'll
put
do
me in the penthouse, or I'm staying in 1408.
I
It's
think
up
you
to
have
you.
find out how much it costs to stay in 1408.
And then he's
versus
like,
how much
okay,
it costs
fine.
to stay in the penthouse and see if it really offsets the cost that much.
That is true. It probably isn't
Yeah.
that.
Yes,
Probably isn't
yeah.
It's
that
got to
cheap,
be
to be honest.
situational.
Something to ponder, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think that's funny. But yeah, go check out these two movies on Screenbox. Go check out our Indiegogo, which I think the trailer will play right after this, and then go check out. Oh, just like and subscribe our stuff. That always helps. That's helpful too. Thank you guys for joining us. I love that Halloween is 5 this week or this month, so we get a lot of movies. But yeah, come back next week when you check.
Bye.
See ya.